Give it a few seconds. So I've got my little eye icon up. Just make sure that it goes up before we start. Always get nervous at this bit. Is it working? Isn't it working? But yes, it looks like it's working. So welcome to November's giveaway. If anyone can just pop a comment on just saying that they can hear me and see me okay, and then we shall get started. So move my little chair forward. So fingers crossed we're working. What I wanted to do before we done our actual giveaway is I've had a few people ask about preparing their expanders. Since I've done my post, a few people are struggling. I had a lad come up to me at Tunnel and, oh, perfect. So we've got some. So I've got one from Jonathan Fairhurst. All good, Paul. Thanks, Jonathan. Really appreciate that from John. And then from the boss. And then from Robert Round saying all good, Paul. So perfect. Well, that's good news. We can actually get started. So anyway, yeah, I had a lad come up to me at Tunnel, really struggling to be able to prepare his expanders. Another lad, one of my good mates, Tommy, he's struggling as well. So I thought before we do our giveaway, I'll just show you the two ways that I prepare them. Now, with expanders, they come in batches. You get far more bad batches than you ever do good batches. So these ones are ones that I actually, whenever I go to Blake's, I go there quite often just to get my own bits and pieces. But trying to get a good expander is so difficult, to be honest. Now, these ones from Blake's are a real small 4mm. And what you probably have all noticed that when you do them correctly, they're the perfect colour. But the nature of the pellet is they don't hold together the best. But trying to get good ones is really difficult. And these, since I've been at Blake's, have been the best 4mm that I've ever found. We did have a batch when I joined, which was a 5mm, which was really nice. And since then, I check all the expanders, and trying to find a good one is so difficult. So it's not just a case of, the companies where they just buy expanders in. When you get a good batch, you get a good batch. So these ones are really, really good 4mm. And one thing that you'll notice with Blake's expanders, for any of you that have used them, they're that beautiful golden yellow colour. But the nature of that pellet, unlike some other brands, some, you can just chuck in water, but they're not the best colour, whereas these are the perfect colour, but you just got to prepare them correctly. So I'm going to show you my two ways of how I prepare them. So the first one is just for the hook. Andy's done this a million times, but I just want to show you again. So all you want is the cheapest food bag. You don't want posh food bags. You just want a cheap square food bag. What I might mean by that is you'll be able to see that the seal there, if I put my head sort of thing, but you've got a perfect corner. It doesn't open up inside. You want basically the cheapest, nastiest food bags that you can buy. So just take one of those off. So we've had a few more questions come up and I will go through them, but you'll be able to see what I mean now in terms of it's just square inside. It doesn't actually open up inside. So I'm going to try and do this the best I can. I've tried my best to find subtitles, and when we done our live, there's a little button that I can press that turns the subtitles off, but for some reason I can't find it on this. You all know what I'm like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my head out of the picture and show you, so that way if there are subtitles, hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So here's my food bag. Like I said, we just ripped it off, and the main thing is that it's got, it doesn't open up inside. So take however many expanders you want for the hook. You're never going to want millions. So I'm going to put a few literally in the corner of a food bag, like so. I should have done a Blue Peter style and done some earlier. But that amount of expanders is more than enough that you'll ever need for the hook for a winter's day. And the way that I do it is to just get some cold water out of the fridge. I think the colder the water, the better. So just get your bit of water. As you can see, I've put me towel down so I don't get me fishing desk completely soaked. And when you're putting your water in, you just want to cover the pellets. So literally a tiny amount. So you'll be able to see there. Can you see at the bottom of that bag? I'm going to try and do it. So imagine if there are subtitles that you'll be able to see. So there's the tiniest amount of water in the bottom of the bag. And then I'm going to minus it. I'm going to lower you down as such. And then all I'm going to do is grab the bag pinch it between my fingers and twist it like so. And then what you end up with, see how tight they are in the bag? So you want to tie it down in a knot, you know, just keep twisting the bag. Again, I normally put this bit between my legs. It's so awkward to be able to do. And then literally just tie it down in a tight knot like so. And then I'm just going to sort of pull it down in a lovely tight knot. See, that one hasn't gone the best, so I'm going to redo that. It's really difficult when you're used to doing something in between your legs to tying it down. So again, a few more expanders. You'd be amazed at, you know, you think, oh, I've done no expanders, and how many you've actually got. So tiniest bit of cold water, exactly the same. So I've got that little tiny bubble at the bottom, and this time I'm going to do it in between my legs because this is how I'm used to tying it. So twist it down again in a knot. I just find it so much easier putting it between my legs. It just holds it nice and tight for me. And then go back around. And you want to tie this knot as tightly down as you possibly can. And what that does, it stops the expanders, as daft as it sounds, expanding too much. So when you want, this is a great little trick, when you've got expanders that are almost too big for the winter, see there how I've tied it down really tightly in a knot. So I might be able to move you up a little bit. But now what you'll end up with is basically the expanders can't expand too much, but there's just enough water to cover them. And all I do then with those is chuck them in the fridge. Just do them the night before you go fishing, chuck them in the fridge, and in the morning they'll be absolutely perfect and there'll be no water in the bag. You don't want any excess water because that's what's going to make your pellets go soggy and horrible and just start breaking down. So when you get to the bank, just cut it below with your scissors, get a little 1 pint bait tub, just put a bit of water in it, sort of half fill it, and then with your expanders, just put a few in at a time. And if you have, and I've had to do this in the past, where my best expanders are sort of like a 5mm, but they're a bit too big for the winter time, then all I do is just put in literally 10 or 12 expanders. You don't need many. That's the biggest thing. 10 or 12 expanders in my water. And then when it comes to hooking them, if these ones are a real small 4mm, they're perfect winter pellet. So if, say, a 16 F1 pellet hook, you'll be able to hook it. You can just put them in the water, but I know they all sink. You just put it in the water and they sink. Now, if you're using, say, a 16 F1 pellet hook, or just say you want to use an 18 F1 pellet hook, and you hook your expander, take it out of the water and hook it, and you put it in the water and it floats, when you pick your expander up, I'll try to show you the best I can. So I'm going to pick my expander up out of the water because it's in the water. As I pick it up, I just squeeze it gently and then take it out, hook it, back up again, up, down, up, down. As you put it in the water, you'll find that it just sinks lovely. But doing it like that is the best way. It's just a case of the batch of expanders you get. And if yours are slightly too big for the winter time, just add a few at a time to your water and they won't expand a lot. But I think the key is using cold water and putting them in the fridge. And as I say, the lad who come and see me at Tunnel on Saturday or Sunday, I think it was, Sunday it might have been, he's got a bag and their expanders are in the bag, but they're full of water and you don't want them, you know, that's just going to make them break down quicker and quicker. So that's the first way if you're just using them for the hook. The second way is some venues you're allowed to use your own pellets like Gold Valley. Then I want to fish and feed expanders because I just think there's nothing better, especially when it's cold, for skimmers and carp. When you can use your own pellets, i.e. not fishery pellets. If it's fishery pellets, you can't feed them. If you can use whatever pellets you want, you can fish and feed expanders. Now, with your pump, it's a similar thing. So what I'm going to do, Ringer's pump, in my opinion, is the best one. You can see how old and dirty it is, but it is the best one that I've ever used. The one downside of this pump is it's really strong. So again, I'm going to make sure I don't knock that water over by the computer. So I'm going to put my expanders in my tub. Normally, I would do this outside. And if I'm going to be feeding what I would say, quite a few expanders, what I have is me ground bait bucket and I just fill it up with water. And then, because I'm going to show you this, the best way of pumping them, then with that, I can just put this tube in the water at an angle, let all the air come out. If there's a bit of air trap, lift it up in the bucket, put it down. And because the water's way above it, it's so much easier to do. But the key to this is making sure that there's always water in it, no air, and not over pumping it. So we've got some water. This is the first time I've ever done this inside, so this could end in disaster. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pour me water in it. Look at this for a concentration face. So keep filling it. And what I want with what's really nice with this pump, I'm actually going to use my smaller bottle of water now, is with this pump, I'm going to, again, I know this is on the laptop. Now, let me point you down. So there, it looks like it's full to the top. But the bubble in it is sort of going down that way. I'm sure it's concave and convex, but I don't know what way it goes around. But what you want to do, it's not good for me because I'm Shaky Stevens, but can you see there how there is now, it's overloaded, the bubbles going the other way. So you should be able to see that. I'm going to try and move my laptop a little bit closer just so you can see it, because I think this bit is so important. You see how it's sort of bubbled at the top? So let me put you back down. I'll slide you up a little bit. Ooh. Right. So that's what you want. You want that bubble in the top. Now, with your pump, what you're trying to do is the least amount of pumps possible. That's what you've got to be thinking. So I'm going to put this over the top like so. Just push it on. Now, when I lift up, I'm going to lift up until I see the pellets release in the air, because when you get me head the right way, when you lift it up, that's what you're doing. The water, you're forcing it in the pellets. So when I lift up, you can see the air come up, and I've lifted that, not a lot. Now I take it off and there's water missing. So again, this is, you think, oh my gosh, this is a right pain in the bum. But this is the best way of pumping your pellets. So again, I can push it back down, lift it up until I start seeing a few bubbles coming out of the pellets. And then again, I take it off, pop it down. Again, this is where you can see with your bucket of water, it just makes life so much easier. But I want to show you this. See there? I don't do it too much. And you'll be able to see now there's a bit of froth and the water's down in my tube. So again, fill it back up. Key with your pellet pump is you don't want to all you're trying to do is put a bit of water in your pellets so that they sink. So it will take a few goes, and you might think, "God, this is a bit of a nightmare doing this," but it's making sure. And again, in your when you do it in your bucket, you'll find you'll top it up, give it a bang, and the pellets will start to sink. So again, I top it up. It's a bit of a lengthy process, but if you want, good pellets, so again, take it off. That one's not taking that much water. Might not be pushing. Again, when I normally do it and I'm stood up, I might not be pushing the actual pump on hard enough. So a bit harder there, a bit. You just got, and eventually the pellets will just go. But I'd rather pump it a few more times than I need to. See there's a few starting to go now. It's just where they're stuck at the top. Again, when I do it in my bucket of water, you just find that you can just wiggle them around, but I don't want to be wiggling it around near the computer too much. So that's it. That's what it was. I'm not pushing it on hard enough. There we are. See that? Then just one little lift up, and all of a sudden, I've seen loads of air coming out of the pellets. That was what I was doing. I wasn't putting it. I was pumping them, but the pump wasn't on hard enough. That's it. See there, literally 2 or 3 little pumps. I'll give it a wiggle now, and that's it. They're all starting to go. Right, I need to stand up. But you see, there's that little bit of water gone. Again, just fill it up so that you've got that bubble. You see them, they lift it up, but I've never once lifted this bit all the way to the top and pushed it back down. So again, when I release that, see a few more start to go down. And you'd be amazed at how little you actually have to do it. I've made a right pig's ear of this, not pushing my pump on hard enough. That's the one. You see there, as soon I've only lifted it probably an inch, and you can see them pellets coming up, and then just push it back down. It's going to be the problem now. I've pushed it on too hard. I'm going to have to stand up. My puddies are all wet. Oh, so you get the gist of it. We'll do it once more because they're all going to go now. Ever so. So there, I lift it up, push it back down, and they're all gone. So now, if I pop that off, obviously there's an odd one still floating, but most of them have gone. But it is a lot easier than that when you're doing it outside. And then that's it. I just leave them in some water. The biggest thing, I think, if I tuck you back up, is making sure that your water's cold. You know, that's one of the biggest things in the summertime when your expanders go to mush, is the water in your bake box has got warm. So hopefully that will help you in the future when it comes to preparing your expanders. I'll tidy my bits up and then we can make a start on our giveaway. Now the other ones, let me just try and lean down. But these ones that we done at the start, you can already see that they're expanding, sucking all that water in. But again, just leave them in the fridge overnight. They'll be absolutely perfect. Right. I'll just pop our bits down. And then we're good to go. Got to make sure that I plug myself in because my laptop was getting a bit hot. So I've got like a little fan blowing up and I don't know if it's going to make any noise or not. So, right, let's get our ground bait sorted and then we can carry on with our November giveaway. So I'll pop our bits up. Right, so before we do that, I'll make sure that I've gone through our, bit, and then we're cooking on gas. So this one is from Colin. Yes, fine. Thank you ever so much, Colin. And then going further down, this one is from a man that's as tall as me, Phil. I love Phil. You're right, Phil. Hope you're keeping well. So this is from Jamie. Hi, Paul. It's Jamie from Tunnel Barn. You're right, Jay. Hope you are keeping well. So moving down, this one is from Paul. I use a similar technique for contraceptive devices. So this one's from Matt. Look, you can tell where Matt's born, how many expanders. That was one thing when I first started doing me F1 fishing. Obviously, I've come from Gold, where you're fishing and feeding expanders. Looking and trying to find good expanders has been very difficult since. So I remember one of the first matches I fished and just wandered around. He's just like, I've given you all them expanders. There's enough for a year there and you just wasted them all. So yeah, that's definitely a northern thing, how many expanders. But it's true when when you find some good ones. I don't know how much money I've spent on expanders since I started F1 fishing, but I'm going to say it's a lot because trying to find them is so difficult. So this one is from my lovely little mate up north, Sam. I think I've won this time. Fingers crossed, Sammy. You know I'm always cheering you on to win. This one's from Wayne. Hi, Paul. You're right, Wayne. Hope you're keeping well. From Phil. Love you too. Love you, Philip. Superstar. And then this one's from Julian. Afternoon, Paul. Do you feed expanders? Yes, where I'm allowed. At Gold, I would say ground bait and maggots, to be honest, have been better. But in the past, where you could fish and feed expanders, where you're fishing for bream and odd carp, it's unbelievable. when you think about it, it's sort of obvious to why they're so good, because with your expanders, when they're in water, they don't break down. The other biggest thing, I think, is what you're feeding. You've got exactly the same hook bait on the hook. So once they've gone round and they've eaten 10 or 12 expanders, your one's one with the hook in it. Especially with the nature of an expander, you can bury so much of your hook in it. They're so light, they're so soft. One fish comes in your peg, unlike, say, if you salt 4 mil hard pellets, there's quite a bit of food in that. Whereas with your expander, they're so light, there's next to nothing in it. They're just so good when the fish want to eat pellets. So yeah, if you go to a venue, Julian, and you're allowed to use your own pellets, I'd 100% try fishing and feeding the expanders. For skimmers and carp especially, they're unbelievable. So yes, where allowed, definitely. So this one's from Andrew. I've won. Fingers crossed, Andrew. Fingers crossed. So this one's from Adam Bentley. Back again. Bet I get nowhere near the draw yet again. Fingers crossed, Adam. Shall I put you out of your misery? I'm sorry, Adam. You need to bribe Joe better. So there, 1 minute. Let me go up. There we are. So this one's from Johnny Fowler. I want to win down South Viaduct. Viaduct? Yeah, you can use your own pellets there. Definitely try it there. Yeah, that's sort of the perfect venue for it, to be honest. Dead shallow, dead soft bottom, skimmers and carp. Yes, 1,000,000%. Give it a go, Johnny. 1,000,000% there. This one's from Craig. Afternoon, Paul. Afternoon, Craig. So we're getting there, lads, and ladies, if you're watching. So Julian, don't use 2 3 mil with a 4 mil on the hook. No, personally, if I was to fish and feed expanders, I'd feed 4s and fish a 4 on the hook. I just think, for me, 2 3 mils, you wouldn't really be able to loose feed them. You could pot a few, I suppose, but then I'd rather just pot a few micro pellets, Scretton's micros, and then just 4 mils. I just think 4 mils are perfect size. You don't need them any smaller than that, and you don't need them any bigger than that. So just 4 mils. Like whenever I've done it in the past, just fishing and feeding 4 mils, they're absolutely perfect. And I think the thing with expanders, like if you think of a 4 mil hard pellet, it's quite dense. There's probably quite a lot of food in it. Whereas a 4 mil expander, so light and soft, it's almost like bread, I'd say. You know, where they suck it in, it's just liquid mush. So I think 4 mils are absolutely perfect. So this one's from Andrew. Fish South Silvers qualifier at White Springs. Some lovely tips. Can't wait. Come on, it looks unbelievable, that venue. If I didn't do as many miles as I did, that is one place. Obviously, watch Mikey's posts all the time, and he's there. And when you look at that net of fish, you just think, oh, I'd love to do that. But I daren't put it in the sat nav because I know what it's going to say. Paul, leave Friday for Sunday match. But yes, it looks awesome, and best of luck, Andrew. So this one's from Wayne. I can remember when you slapped me off the next peg at Tree Waters at White Acres. God, that was a while ago. Tree Waters hasn't been in for forever. That was a weird venue for me. It was either very good to me, but my recent matches, thinking back, it was not very nice to me. But yeah, I loved going to Tree Waters. It was a really, 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 really nice venue. Again, what I liked about it was changed all of the time. Like every day was different. You never quite knew. The top lake and the bottom lake were so different. But yeah, brilliant venue there. So from John Mack, hello, kidder. You're right, John. And then our last one, this one is from Rod. Evening, Paul. Evening, Rod. So what we're going to do is, eventually we got round to doing our November giveaway. So what we're going to do, again, trying to pick it for the time of the year. So there's 10 winners, and they're each going to win 4 kilos of ground bait and 700 grams of expanders. So the first ground bait is our fine expander. Again, lovely this time of the year. Really, really nice fine expander. Moving on, this is Yanis mix, our coarse expander. Absolutely love this mix. When I go to gold fishing my ground bait and maggots, just, I don't know, it's just that coarse texture. It's got food in it. It's just lovely. Absolutely love that mix. Again, this is a mix that, to be honest, I'm finding myself using excuse me, more and more and more now. This one was Andy's mix that he wanted, Skimmers Dark. I know how popular this is. Again, I'm getting to do a little bit more silverfish fishing. We go into the Riddings, and then we've got Meadowlands. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've had 2 silverfish qualifiers, one that we filmed at Makins and one at the Glebe. The Glebe was lovely, but just too many carp. Makins was just catching them roach. Honestly, it was unbelievable. I just absolutely loved it. So, yeah, doing a bit more silverfish fishing, and this is the mix that a lot of people are using. That's the nicest way I can put it. And then lastly, our all-round mix. I'm going to say this is Christian's mix because he absolutely loves that pole mix wherever he goes. What you use, Chris? Pole mix? Pole mix. That's all he ever wants to use. I'm sure he uses a bit of Skimmer Dark and the others, but I know that's Christian's favourite. And then lastly, our little bag of expanders that hopefully now give you a few tips on how to best prepare them. But before, obviously, calling out the winners, if you struggle with expanders, it might be the batch of pellets that you're using as well. I want to touch on that. When you find a good batch, stock up. I've got some Ringers 6 mils that I found one batch number for, and I think I've got, how many bags have I got? I think I've got 6 or 7. And they're the only 6 mils I've ever found. And when I say the only ones, I mean the only 6 mils that I've ever found that you can bag them up, you can pump them. They're a beautiful colour. They hold together, and they don't go to mush, basically. So it is a case of trying to find a good batch for the time of year you're fishing. And those 4 mils are lovely for sort of winter F1 fishing and skimmer fishing. When it warms up, you start wanting like a 5 mil expander. But I haven't found a good batch of those, to be honest. I'm going to say the last batch of expanders that I actually got that were brilliant, Sam put me onto them, little Sam Slockett, and they were, where did he get them from now? I think it was like a pet shop, and I don't know how much money I spent, a lot. I think it was like 190 quid on expanders because they were that good, but they were like a little tub like this, and I think they were about 9 quid because they're made for like, they're not made. They're just a bag of expanders that a tropical fish company is selling to very wealthy people. And yeah, I think they're about 9-10 quid for like a tiny, tiny little pot. But they're a lovely sort of 5 milli expander. So yeah, trying to find them is a nightmare. It's not just you that'll be suffering. And if you find any, please let me know. I promise I won't tell anyone. So what we do, we go through our, of course I tell you, if we go through our winners and then we'll finish off our questions, and then I'll let you enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon. I had to check what day it was then. So, our November winners, you will get an email from Joe. It will be from Match Focus, which may be something else, www.matchfocus.co.uk, or support a Match Focus. But you will definitely get an email from Joe. And then if you can reply to that, sort of your address, safe place to leave, all of that sort of stuff, but you're not being scammed. It will be from Joe. So moving on to our winners. Our first winner is Ryan Zon. Congratulations, Ryan. Our second winner is John Carberry. Congratulations, John. Our third winner is Robert Rendell. Congratulations, Robert. Our fourth winner is Ian Dunlop. Congratulations, Ian. Our fifth winner is Robert Walker. Congratulations, Robert. Our sixth winner is Doug Earl. Congratulations, Doug. Our seventh winner is Martin Sedgwick. Congratulations, Martin. Our eighth winner is Simon Wood. Our ninth winner is Steve Amison. Congratulations, Steve. I hope I've said that right. And our last winner, and Andrew is not going to be best pleased because it's one of his sort of mates as such, John Hannam. Congratulations, John. Or I think it is anyway. I should stop saying that. Joe keeps telling me off because I made that mistake once thinking that Mikey had won, and it weren't. It was another Mikey. So I probably shouldn't have said that, but I think it's John. So those are our November winners. Again, you'll get an email from Joe if you've won. Just reply back to that. If you think you know someone that's won, if you can tag them in the post, that'd be brilliant. But yes, that was this November's giveaway. If you didn't win, I am very, very sorry. Fingers crossed for you next month. You never know. December, Christmas month. I shouldn't say December's a Christmas month, because for Jo, it starts in sort of about, I don't know, May. She's been, I almost done a video the other day because I'm sat down here, tying my hooks up, like, you know, thinking, right, where I'm going here. And then a Christmas song comes on in the bathroom. And I'm just thinking, you're having a laugh. It's November. She's mad for it. Absolutely loves it. But fingers crossed you might win next month. So what we can do is we go back up, go through our, make sure I haven't missed anyone out as such. And then I'll let you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. So, so this one's from Ben Lord. Did you feed Expander at the Glebe? If not, what was your silver approach? So I'd never been there before, Ben. I spoke to Sam Collett. I'm sorry I didn't get round to doing a match report. There's very few that I don't get round to doing a match report, but basically that was the start of a manic time for me. I'm sure I was just out all of the time. It might have been on the Drennan. Yeah, it was the Drennan. Then we filmed a live match at Makins, and I just had no days, but I wanted to jump in on it. But basically, I fed, I think I measured out, I used Course Expander that day. I definitely remember using that because it was still quite mild. And I think I measured out, I'm going to say 400 mil of ground bait, 100 mil of worms, 100 mil of casters. Mix that, you know, together. So very little ground bait, a bit of water, and I fed it loose long. And I fished 13 meters without my dolly butt, with a short 4 and a long kit. And I remember that day, my best rig by far was a gram. It's not that deep. I'm going to say it was only about 6 foot deep. It was really windy coming sideways on. And then my plan was to loose feed worms and casters mixed short and drop in on my short line. So I started short. I fed my long line, started short, and I'd get bites mainly from little roach, a very odd little skimmer. And the biggest mistake that I made that day was I didn't go on my long line until I think it was 50 minutes or maybe an hour into the match. And I went in, caught well, you know, little skimmers on just little tiny bits of worm. And then the carp, the longer the match went on, the more the carp plagued me. And looking back, I think I should have just fed, say, one little ball of worms with few casters with my ground bait, fed that, sat short for maybe 15 minutes and just loose fed a few casters long, and then gone long, because it was that early spell where the carp weren't as active. That was the mistake that I made. And then as the match got on, it just got worse and worse and worse. I remember like I've set up a line sort of 3 foot on a top kit, just thought I could throw some casters there, because if I'm getting hammered everywhere else with carp, I can just drop in there. And that was the problem. But if you didn't feed, you never caught any skimmers. You know, just loose fed me casters. Before I talk about that, what was so important that day, and it just come back to me, is the use of a front rest. It was, I'm not going to say it was overly windy, and I was only fishing like my 13 meter bit with a short 4, so I wasn't even fishing that far out, just loose feeding my casters. But my little routine was I chip out, swing my rig out, even with my gram rig, put it in my spray bar, fire my casters, my pole nice and low with my back shot probably that far, maybe 6-inch from my pole tip, but then say 12-inch from my back shot to my pole float, and it just sit there like a rock, basically, so steady, it just go under and I catch them. And then every now and again, because you're catching quite quickly, I chip out, sort of swing my rig out, holding my pole, feed my casters. I'm trying to hold on to my float, and I'm using a heavy float as well, a gram. It just nowhere, I just never got bites as quick as when I put it in my front rest. So that was a big thing that I learned. I did catch a few. I just fed worms and casters short. I didn't want to feed any ground bait short, because as I was setting up, I was the end peg with the wind blowing down. I see sort of 3 carp swimming around me. So I just thought, well, if I throw worms and casters short, I've got less chance of catching carp. But I caught a few, you know, an odd better skimmer there. Again, just with a little tiny bit of worm on the hook. I'm going to say it was probably like that big, but then by the time, once you nip it off just in and around the saddle, then it ends up, I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe an inch long. Bit of worm, that was good. I think that day I fished quite aggressive in the end. I just ended up using 014 and 16 Super LWG, because there was that many carp. I don't want to be leaving me, you know, I don't want to be pulling for a break. If I hook a carp, we don't want to hook them, but I'd rather, you know, fish a 014 and 16 where I can sort of lock down and play them and net them rather than them just breaking me. I don't like the idea of that, to be honest. And loose feeding long was really, really important. And I had to go on a waggler. I caught one skimmer on that, but it was a waste of time. But yeah, looking back, the biggest mistake that I made is I fed probably too much on the pole long and I didn't go on it quick enough. And I think that's the biggest thing you've got to be careful of when there's a lot of carp about. The latter, we all know what it's like when you're carp fishing. The latter part, you know, the longer it goes, the more chance you've got of hooking a few carp. But front rest and getting on that long pole line, loose feeding casters was brilliant, Ben. But hopefully that's given you a bit of advice. And I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to do a match report. I always try and do them, but that I just remember it being like, I think it was 10 or 12 days, just every single day we was doing something, and I never got round to doing it. So I'm sorry about that, Ben. So moving further down, this one's from Jason. Evening, Paul. Evening, Jason. I hope you're keeping well. And then going further down, this from Chris. Hello, Paul. What do you use at White Acres, i.e. Garbolino next week? Ground bait wise, I'm guessing. What mix? What would I use? I'd probably just use Skimmer Dark, to be honest, because I don't think you'd be feeding a lot of ground bait. I think it'd be more. We had our live yesterday, and Andy went down there. It was just sort of all live maggot fishing. So I don't think you'd be feeding an awful lot of ground bait. So I just sort of maybe a little bit of Skimmer Dark. I don't think you'd want a lot of ground bait anyway. I don't think there'd be anywhere where I'd be thinking I'm going to be feeding sort of 3 or 4 balls long. You might want maybe on the deep side of Match Lake. Again, I haven't been this year, so as soon as you're not going, you're out of that little loop. But it's what you feed on the long pole on the deep side. I know that they do catch a few fish on corn, but speaking to Andy, he didn't catch a lot on corn. It was more like sort of live maggots. But maybe on the deep side of Match Lake, some worms in a little bit of ground bait, loose feeding a few casters. I know in the past they used to catch quite well loose feeding casters, catching sort of 3-4 foot deep. But I don't know a lot about it, Chris, to be honest. I haven't been there in the winter time, but from what I gathered from Andy, it was all sort of big F1 fishing, catching monster F1s, ones that you didn't see, to be honest, on the normal festivals. You'd catch a few of them on Trelawney, but on Jenny's you didn't catch that many. So I would just say live maggots, to be honest. And if I took some ground bait with me, it's always quite clear down there. I'd probably just opt for a little bit of Skimmer Dark, to be honest, because then it's not too selective. So that's what I would take if I was going. So this one is from Jason. How do you get involved, i.e. entering for the prizes? There's no entering, Jason. It's just for subscribers. So anyone who subscribes gets automatically entered into the draw. And then Joe just does like a random number generator thing on the computer. And basically that's it. So you don't need to enter. It's just, you know, if you subscribe to Match Focus, basically you're in the draw every month. And it's just something nice that we like to do. So basically that's it. There's no like payment or anything like that. So this one's from Andrew. John Boy, we can share. Definitely. Sharing's caring. Tell him, Andrew. So cheers for taking him in. So this one's from Robert Round. Didn't win, so can't donate prize to Matty Dawes. He never wins. Matt is good enough. He'll win one day. This from Joe, Match Focus, November the 6th. Christmas is the season, and she does mean that, the season. I've said to her, when we move, she can have just a room for Christmas, and she would have it up all year round. She managed to talk her mum and dad into putting the tree up, because the dad was saying, I'm not too sure if it fits, and Joe being Joe, we should get it out of the garage and we can measure it up. And whilst it's out, we might as well just leave it up and put all the other decorations up. So when you're driving past and you look and you think, who's got that? That's Joe. 1,000,000% that is Joe. It's absolute Fruit Loop, but she loves it, which is nice. Makes Christmas brilliant for me, to be fair. So this from Scott. Evening, bud. You good? Yes, all good here, Scott. I hope you're keeping well. So we're nearly there now. This from Phil. Have you fished Watmore Farm Pool? No. That is literally just by Yateley. So I'm going to say it's probably, if not the closest venue to me. And I've never been. I've heard a bit about it deep. And I think the roach fishing is meant to be brilliant there, but I've never actually been there, Phil, so I don't know. The only person I know that's been there a bit is Mark Goddard, but I know that you'll be fishing a qualifier and he'll be on it. So I don't think he's going to tell you a lot, Phil. But no, I haven't been. You know, I'd help you out if I had been. But no, I haven't been. So this one's from Tony. Hi, Paul. It's dobbing time at the fishery. What RW float do you suggest, Tony? I would say if you're fishing, this is what I found. Again, I haven't done a lot of it lately because the last 2 years I've missed the Winter League at Tunnel, but I would use a freebie dobber. So Rich sells two sizes, a freebie and, sorry, a freebie 10 and a 5 10. That's how long I haven't done it for. I'm going to say, right, which drawer are they in? Should we go for it? Right, you're going to go up and down a minute, but they're in mid-box below me. So give me 1 second. Oh, I pressed the button. I hope I haven't done anything wrong. The headphones are caught. It's not that one. It's not that one. This is the one. My headphone, I'm like proper trapped here. So, right. So, 3B10 and a 5B10. We've got them here. So, just bear with me. I bet everyone watching this is going to feel sick. We've been up and down that many times. Right, so let me put me. Ooh, we all know what box that is. That is my favourite box when that one comes out. That is my Waggler box. So hopefully I haven't deleted nothing or pressed something that I shouldn't have done. It all seems a good idea until you do it, and then you're halfway through it and you think, I shouldn't have done that. But it looks like we're still going. So those are the two floats there, Tony. So that one, the green one, obviously sells them in different colour tips. But that one there is a freebie 10, little dobber. And then that one is a 5 10. Those are the floats that I'd use. When I'd done it at Tunnel, what I will say is the freebie 10 one, for me, just works so much better. I think dobbing is always best when there's no wind, and it's flat calm, sort of bright sunshine, not a breath of wind. And my freebie 10 one, I use that up to sort of 3.5 foot. But when you start getting deeper than really 3 foot, to be honest, you want to use your 5x10. Shotting wise, my book's over there. I'm not going to risk it. But shotting wise, if I can remember off the top of my head, the freebie 10 one takes, I think, 2 number 12 cubes or stots. And then I think it's 2 number 11s and maybe a few trimmers. And then your 5x10, I think that takes 3 number 12s. And I'm going to say 3 number 10s and a number 11. So they are quite little light floats. What's nice with them is they've got that flexi wire. So I think that's another thing that's important. When you are dobbing, because your bait's not on the bottom, you know, there's not something anchoring your hook bait like it would do, you know, on the bottom when you're fishing maggots or pellets. They can drift around a little bit. But yeah, when I done it, that little 3x10 one, that was really the best float, to be honest. If it's more F1s, again, sort of memory coming back to me, it's so important to dot your float down, especially when you start. Obviously, you've got to be able to see it. But sometimes when I was dobbing at Tunnel, I'm going to say the best depth, it was 32 inch, if I remember right. For some reason, that was just the best depth when you was dobbing in the deep water down the track. A bit different when you're dobbing to cover. But around 32 inch. But what you'd get sometimes when you start, your float's obviously dotted down. I try and do it in front of my jumper so you can see. I might even be able to do it on the float. So if I do it here like this, so your float's dotted down and you just get a little like that. You just get a tiny little lift, and that tells you basically you're fishing too deep. So if your float was like that, it'd be harder to see a little indication. And I remember a few times where I've sort of got it dotted down. I'm struggling to see it a little bit. And I think this is why you want to put some number 13 trimming cubes or stots above your bulk, your little bulk, sort of half depth, is I put like a little bit of grease, and all of a sudden it's just a bit too buoyant. And I've gone in and I was catching, I was getting bites, and all of a sudden now I'm not getting anywhere near as many bites. So the resistance of your float is so important. Try and fish with it as dotted down as much as possible, as long as you can see it. And look for little lifts. If you're getting little lifts, you know, just shallow up. And that's one thing I will say about having your top kits, or at least one top kit marked. If you've been and you've caught a few dobbing, after the match, don't just bite your rig off, or, you know, wrap it around your winder and move your flow. Just, even if you just do it on one of your cupping kits, just hook it up, and it'll give you a good guide then as to, you know, the depths that you've caught at. But I just remember off the top of my head, 32-inch at tunnel was always such a good depth. So I think it's basically 2 inch above 2.5 foot. That just seems such a good dobbing depth. But yes, those are the two that I would use. 3x10, sort of 3 foot. Deeper than that, a 5x10. So hopefully, Tony, there's a few little tips for you. So this from Jason. Cheers, no problems whatsoever. What shot in? So hopefully I've gone through that. I might as well just 1 second, Tony, 1 second. I've got my books here, and then I can definitely tell you what they take. So some dobbers. Oh, there they are. I will add it on the right page, so you'll be able to see it's an absolute state, this book. But my dobbers, a 3x10 takes 2 number 11s and a number 12 as a bulk. So I weren't a million mile off, and then 2 number 12s down the line. And then my 5x10 takes 3 number 10 slots as a bulk and a number 11, and then 3 number 12 slots. So that's basically the shot in bulk, half depth, and then 2 number 12 droppers, and a, you know, that extra number 12 on me 5x10. If I ever went somewhere where I might be dobbing, say, I don't know, 4.5 foot deep, I've never experienced that yet, but then it just gives me the option of being able to have 3 droppers. But I'd say for all of the dobbing I've ever done, your little bulk, roughly half depth, and then 2 number 12s below it. I'd fish 0.16 main line, and then I'd fish, if it was just F1s, I'd fish a 5-inch hook length of 0.10 and a 16 F1 pellet hook. If it was more carp, like if I was going to Munkle, then I'd probably use a Super LWG. But if I was going somewhere at Tunnel where I was going to hook a few more carp, then 0.12 and a 16 F1 pellet. But that 16 F1 pellet hook is so much stronger than an 18 or a 20. I don't know if the wire's ever so slightly thicker, but that's the one that I've used. And then just a 6mm Guru Punch. So this from Tony, big F1s. So yes, a 16 F1 pellet hook to 0.10 or 0.12. So going further down is from Kevin. Hi, Paul. Are you a fan of wire stem floats or flexi wire ones? To be honest, don't like wire. I always use carbon where I can, but when I use wire, I much prefer to use steel, you know, not flexi wire. Because if I want a wire float, I'm picking it because I want stability. And for me, I've had this conversation with Rich a lot, and he's saying to me about the weight and stuff like that. There's no reason why a flexi wire one shouldn't be as good as a steel. But I've always found that steel is better. So I just have a simple rule: carbon wherever I can, to be honest. And then when I'm using a wire stem flow, I like using steel wire. The only difference for that is, so when I'm going to gold and say it's 7 foot, I'll set up 2 floats, so say a 4x16 solid bristled Maggie, not a winter Maggie, or 1.5mm solid bristled Maggie for carbon. And then from the bottom, I use a Gloucester. So fiber bristled perfect Gloucester. I don't think they sell them anymore because I've been trying to stock up, and Callum actually saved me. He found a few 0.75s. So that's what I would say is when I normally use like a wire stem flow. But then for F1 fishing, the pellet floats that I've got, the ones that Chris designed, they're a flexi wire, but I just find on F1 venues it doesn't tow like it does on a big lake. So say Meadowlands, Barston, Gold, you know, a bigger open water lake, it's going to tow a fair bit, Larford. Whereas at Tunnel, it's not wide, it's not very deep, it doesn't tend to tow a lot. So the only wire floats I ever use at Tunnel were for my pellet fishing, and those ones are sort of flexi wire. But I find them absolutely perfect when I'm fishing with micros and expanders. And then the other wire that I use is obviously for your dobbing float, where you need a bit of weight in your float because your bait's not, you know, your bait's suspended, so it's more likely to drift. Having said that, and again, I don't want to give away, you know, I don't think there's many secrets in fishing, but I know that Chris and Kieran Marsden, where they go to Furswood, they use a 4B8 sort of 4B10 Winter Maggie. They find that absolutely brilliant for dobbing. I've not got round to trying that yet because, like I say, the last 2 winters I've been to Gold, I haven't done any winter F1 fishing. But, you know, if they're not very deep, I know how much of a difference using, say, that 3B8 Winter Maggie or 4B8 Winter Maggie is when you're shallow fishing, just the least amount of resistance possible. But I think to be able to use that flow, the conditions would have to be perfect. But to be fair, when you are dobbing, days when it's windy and, you know, you're getting drift and that, it doesn't normally tend to be the best days for dobbing. Having said that, that's not always the case, because I know when we recently went to Monk Hall on Buzzard, it was windy both days and they emptied it. Well, I say they emptied it. A couple of pegs on Buzzard emptied it, and that's one of the highest lakes on site. And it was windy where we were, and we were further down. So, but then it was big carp, and Monk Hall is just an exceptional venue, to be fair. So that, again, that's not always the case. But Kevin, really, to answer your flow, if I could pick, nice and simple, carbon where possible. When I want to use a wire float, I'd much rather use steel. But then for your pellet fishing, sort of tunnel where it's narrow, you're not getting as much water movement, flexi wire's fine. And obviously for your dobbing floats, flexi wire's perfect. So hopefully that helps answer, but it's definitely personal preference. I just like carbon. It don't bend, it don't break, it just fishes so nice. On average, it takes more shot down the line than your wire stem version. But when, you know, if I was going to Gold for argument's sake and it's deep, it's open, and you get a bit of a wind on it, your carbon stems just keep moving. So then you have to use a wire. But for that case, then I'd much rather use steel wire. But hopefully that helps. So this one was from Lee. Paul, if you had the choice of a pool, peg, air tunnel, what would it be for the winter period? Canal Free. 1,000,000%. They live there. They're always there. You can go there and be the only person. You'll always get bites. You can park behind your peg. It's just, and they're massive. So yeah, Canal Free, peg free on Canal. It's mint there, and having that added bonus, being able to park behind your peg if it's chucking it down the rain. But yes, peg free on Canal. You'll even catch, and not right in the edge, but down the edge a little bit, and there's some massive fish there. So that, if I didn't know where I'd want to go and sit, I'd always go and sit there because you'll always get some bites there. So yeah, go and sit there, Lee. You'll have a mint day. So literally a couple more, and then we're sorted. So this from Tony. Thanks, mate. We'll order them now. No problems whatsoever. And Richard's bang on with all his deliveries and stuff like that. So yeah, you shouldn't have to wait long. So this one's from Stu. Paul, I'm down South Coast, Portsmouth. Do you ever do coaching days down south? To be honest, Stu, I don't. I do odd days, but with me filming, trying to get all my filming booked in first. I never really know what I've got. Whereas before we done Match Focus, all I'd done was coach. I knew what days we had, and what's difficult. To be honest, Portsmouth's probably a bit too far. I will be doing a few at Tunnel. I've got a big long list that I need to get round to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this year and book me filming in first. But what's really difficult for us is if we're going to go out and sort of we book the days in, which you can imagine is being outside, book the day in, and then it's hammering it down with rain, we can't do it. Then it's a case of it's trying to find another day where I can do it and Baz can do it, because Baz, you know, does other stuff as well. So I've always got to make sure I've got X amount of dates free. But what I'm going to try and do this year is just do a few little small group days on a Friday to try and make a long weekend of it. And then I'm going to try and do them where I pick the venue and the method. So for argument's sake, I'd go and do one at Gold Valley and it'd be pellet, waggler and bomb. And then I'll do another one, maybe at Gold or at Willingshurst, and I'll do it sort of on the pole and try and do them like that and just do them on a Friday, because then I can get an odd and booked in. But at the moment, I've got a few people waiting. I don't like leaving people waiting if I can help it, but it's really difficult trying to, you know, get the dates booked in, because once I looked at my calendar and we booked our Match Focus stuff in, you know, my matches and my festivals, it's so popular in the summer. I'm never here as it is, never at home. But yeah, I will be doing an odd one, but to be honest, Portsmouth probably be a little bit. Saying that, I have been to, where did I go to? Round that way. Orchard Lakes. And that was unbelievable. I had a lovely, lovely time there. So I could do an odd one there. I know a few of the lads. I've been down there a couple of times, and I'm sure is that Portsmouth or Bournemouth? I think that might be Bournemouth way. Again, with areas of the world I'm not the best with, to be honest. Sat nav, follow that. You can't go wrong. So I'm not too sure how far away that is, but if I can, and we've got time, I'll try and get an odd one down there as well. But hopefully, everyone, you've enjoyed our little November, I forgot the month then, our November giveaway. A few little tips, obviously, with your expanders. If there was any questions that you had that didn't get a chance to answer, sometimes I watch it back on me, obviously your Facebook thing, and there's, you know, people that I didn't message, you know, and I see it and it's like that didn't come up when I was, you know, doing our live. So if I've missed anyone's question, just send it over to me, and I'll try my best to help out. You know, I always do. So, right, we've got, I think, right, Phil's put, 1 minute, Orchard, New Forest, Bashley. Yeah. Is that Bournemouth, Portsmouth? I don't know, but yes, that was the one where I went to. It was absolutely lovely. So we've got one more from Paul, and then I'm going to love you and leave you, because otherwise I'm just going to take up all your Thursday night. So this one's from Paul. Hi, Paul. Sometimes when pole fishing, the float does not settle right. I have to lift and drop it to get it to settle right. How do you solve this problem? Yeah, 1,000,000% what you're saying, Paul. One thing that I find is floats sometimes they just need to get wet and then they start sitting right. And sometimes I don't know if it's to do with the pressure, but sometimes you can shot your float at home basically, and you'll shot it in your little shotting tube, or you know, I do it in my river, and you shot it down. It's absolutely perfect with your trimmers, and then you get there and it does one or two things. You either put it in, it just goes wrong, or you put it in, it just sticks out too much. I think once your float's wet, you'll always find, or I always find, especially when you're using real light rigs, that your first time you lay your rig in, it's almost like you need to get it wet almost, and then it starts like I think you could probably lick it, maybe wet it like that. I wouldn't suggest doing that because what is it, Wheels disease or Veals disease, whatever it is. So yeah, I wouldn't suggest doing stuff like that. But I 100% get what you're saying, especially with your little light floats. But once they've, you know, been used, basically been wet, they will just start to sit right naturally. And I think all floats always do that, because how many times have you been using a rig all of a sudden and then you have a meltdown, i.e. your rig breaks, and you get out another rig which is exactly the same, is shotted exactly the same float, the same main line, and it never seems to work the same. So the only thing that I can put it down to is just once it's been wet, you know, and been in the lake, got some water over the bristle and the stem, and the body, and then it just starts to work nicely. But then I don't know if there's more scientific things of like the pressure on the water, you know, the skim and stuff like that. Again, a bit like what we was doing with our pellet pump, you know, being able to get that bubble. There's almost a bit of skin on the water. So I don't know if that's something to do with it. But all I say is normally once, you know, you've had a bar or two on it and it's been in the water a little bit, it just starts to work better anyway. But that's why on all my rigs, if I can get, apart from my little really, really light rigs, I always try putting a few number 13 trimmers on it. And then as it, you know, if it's sitting a bit low, you can just nip one off. But yes, I wouldn't say that you're the only person. It happens all of the time, Paul, but that's all I would say really. It just gets better once it's got wet, basically. So this one's from Stu, and then we're sorted. So Orchard is in Bournemouth, but only half an hour away. Williamshurst to Gold, not a million mile away. Keep an eye on page. No problems at all, Stuart. So that is the end of our November giveaway. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have a lovely weekend. if you're fishing or not fishing. But if you are fishing, I hope you catch a few. But have a lovely weekend regardless. And I will catch up with you. It'll be a similar time next month because obviously we've got the Christmas coming up. Joe, I don't think she'll remind me that much. We've got Christmas coming up. So I think next month it's going to be around about maybe the second week, I would say, second to just going into the third week. And then it gives the boys a chance to obviously post the prizes out. But again, with all the Christmas deliveries, I'm not too sure how that's going to work, but we'll try our best. So yes, roughly about this time next month. Right, I've waffled on long enough. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and I will see you all soon. Cheers.